The UK government has already killed 16 children.
Yeah, I know my voice, you'll be pleased to know if you're still here. This very charming looking person is Essence of Thought, well-known online cyberbully, went after someone called Rachel Oates. I think this feud has been going on for like 5 years, and it's mostly one-sided at this point, because I don't think Rachel Oates cares about Essence of Thought anymore. But yeah, we'll see if she brings up Rachel Oates in this video. That'll be interesting. This is called Second Whistleblower Confirms Government Murder of 16 Trans Children. So what they're talking about was there was some ruling in a case that ended up with restrictions on like puberty blockers, like gender affirming care for minors. And since then, like 16 children have killed themselves, I think over about 4 years. So it's about 4 a year. And like previously, supposedly, there was one in the last 7 years before this case ruling. And supposedly the NHS had been like covering it up, which, if that's true, it might be, I don't know, because these people talking conspiracies say everything is, well, I guess that could be true, but I don't know. So if that's true, it could be a cover-up. It could be because they don't want more people killing themselves. They're worried about copycats because they think that it might inspire other people to like do that as some kind of form of protest or something, when shit's already fucked up enough around like children and trans healthcare. And we're saying the word suicide in combination with those things like constantly, which I don't think is helping anyone. And government murder is an absolutely insane way of putting it. But let's see what Essence of Thought has to say. Let's go.
There can be no more doubt. The UK government is committing democide. That is the intentional killing of an unarmed or disarmed person.
Democide. It's not genocide, it's democide.
In this case, civilians, by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity, and
by civilians, she means like trans kids, by the way. She talks in code. You just this is gonna be a difficult one. It's gonna be a long one.
pursuant to government policy or high command. We now know that the UK government has already killed
trans woman, by the way.
16 children by temporarily blocking puberty blockers or trans youth.
And they didn't kill them, they killed themselves. You're treating it like a easy sum, 1 + 1 is 2, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Let me see that again, my brain is dying.
That the UK government has already killed 16 children by temporarily blocking puberty blockers or trans.
Yeah, so saying they killed themselves. We don't ultimately know why they killed themselves. We don't ultimately know that all or any of these kids are actually trans. We don't know what other issues they have. Like, there's a lot of questions, and I have a feeling this is going to be like propaganda laid on thick, but let's see.
Trans youth in 2020, and yet, in spite of knowing this to be the result of such policy,
it could have been 16 in 1 year. I could be wrong about that, but I'm not sure.
Is facts that were explicitly brought to their attention by multiple people, said government has sought to introduce new and even stricter limits on said essential medications.
Essential medications.
Thus declaring its intent to kill further children. This is no accident. This is acting with the intent to kill, a fact.
This is like insane already. This is completely insane. I didn't expect any different, because I've seen the odd video of this person. Like, I can't really watch them very long without someone else, because it's one of those things where I feel like I'm being gaslit constantly by them, and I don't know for a fact what's true and what isn't, because they twist everything so much. Like, the government are killing further kids by restricting access to puberty blockers, when you've got questions like, do these kids know they're trans? How do we know that we're giving them to the right people? How do we measure consent in terms of kids? You know, what's the diagnostic process for kids? All sorts of things. But none of that matters, because if they're trans, then they need the hormones ASAP or they'll kill themselves, according to this person.
We now know thanks to not one, but 2 separate NHS whistleblowers. That's what we're here to talk about.
We now know.
Today. But first, a quick content warning for the following. Transmisia, medical gatekeeping, child...
Transmisia. No one... Well, we've got democide, transmisia. No one uses these terms except for this person. Content warning, medical gatekeeping. Oh, that's the one thing that triggers me. Oh, fuck, I can't watch this video. Oh, no.
Abuse, suicide, and democide. I'd also just like to take this time to remind our viewers that the statements made throughout our...
This person must understand that, like, to a layman, they're not going to understand what the fuck they're talking about. This is like the most preaching to the choir shit, like, ever. And you can tell, like, look through their comments and shit. It's all crazy people that actually believe this shit.
Our videos are the opinions of myself, the host, based on the evidence I have available to me. They are not and should not be taken as unquestionable fact, which is why we reference everything. Because we're valuable. Thus, we try to give you, the viewer, the ability to check all evidence for yourself in order to make...
I think she also refers to herself as a we, but I can't remember if that's a DID thing or if it's a royal we, I don't know.
Make up your own mind, which is what the reference numbers in the top left corner are for, being numbers that match up with the reference list found in the transcript linked down below. As such, we encourage all viewers to do their own research to reach an informed conclusion about the topic. Hi there, my name is Apple Thurston, she, her, they, them, and today we're here to
She, her, they, them.
Talk about the second whistleblower who has come forward to...
Listen, I can't really make fun of her voice. Mine probably sounds awful, but I don't care.
Confirm what the first one said regarding the Tavistock 16. That is the 16 children who took their own lives during the 3 years following the Belle v. Tavistock rule.
Oh, so 3 years, okay, right. I wasn't sure. So I thought it was like from then until now, but it was from then until 2023. So that's 7 or 8 a year, I guess. I look like Jack Whitehall. What, this person or me? I hope this person. I don't know, I don't mind. If I look like Jack Whitehall, that's not the end of the world. Danish Minecraft server, hey, how you doing?
That disrupted trans youth healthcare, specifically puberty blockers. Do note, said ban was overturned in 2021.
That makes me want to know what Jack Whitehall would look like if he transitioned now.
Thanks to the actions of the Good Law Project, the Endocrine Society, and Gender Intelligence. Yet the UK government refused to honour said legal ruling, seeking to limit gender-affirming healthcare via other means. We also have some additional...
Wait, hold up. This is going to take ages, I don't care though, like...
Thanks to the actions of the Good Law Project, the Endocrine Society, and the Belle v. Tavistock ruling that disrupted trans youth healthcare, specifically puberty blockers. Do note, said ban was overturned in 2021, thanks to the actions of the Good Law Project, the Endocrine Society, and Gender Intelligence, yet the UK government refused to honour said legal ruling.
Well, there might have been other issues, such as the fact that they're not, you know, reversible. Things like that. We don't know why we're giving them to some kids. Usually the patient doesn't dictate their own treatment, stuff like that. I don't know.
Seeking to limit gender-affirming healthcare via other means. We also have some additional details regarding the first whistleblower, details that show the extent of the corruption. Perhaps most notable is the fact that Dr. Hilary Cass, the author of the Independent Review of Gender Identity Services for Children and Young People, better known as the Cass Review, was seemingly aware of said atrocity and decided to assist the UK
of said atrocity.
Government in covering up the deaths of 16 children, omitting key evidence in the process.
Yeah, and here's the cover-up. So to me, it kind of seems like they probably didn't want more people to kill themselves because there's an element of like social contagion to suicide. And, you know, with kids, it's probably a lot more fraught than just adults. There was loads of teenagers in Newport in Wales that like killed themselves, like one after the other. So, you know, it's not out of the question. It's fair enough to say that it seems like a cover-up, but you got to think about why it might be, and you can't only view it from the thought of, oh, the government's evil, therefore it must be for nefarious purposes, or it must be because they're anti-trans or something. Like, you got to think a bit deeper than that.
This is especially important, seeing as the Cass Review acted as the primary excuse to, once again, officially ban puberty blockers of trans youth in 2024. Blockers of trans youth were banned under the NHS back in March, and an emergency ban blocking access to said medications under private and European providers went into effect on the 3rd of June, sparking fears about further potential suicides.
Do you know what's terrible? Every advert that comes up, this is giving fucking money to this person.
If you'd like a breakdown on some of the major flaws with the Cass Review, you can find ours by checking out our video exposing the danger of anti-trans fascism regarding the Cass Review and Labour's downfall.
Anti-trans fascism. Talking about Labour, like, Jesus Christ. Everything that's anti-trans is like fascist to them. The word fascist basically has no meaning anymore. It just means anything right-wing or anything not what these people believe. It's cringe.
Specifically the chapter titled Trans Men as Victims, the Cass Review. For more on the Good Law Project's legal challenge on the emergency ban, you can check out our video, Human Rights Groups Seek to Overturn Ban on Puberty Blockers, regarding the Cass Review. And lastly, for our previous video covering the Tavistock...
Jesus Christ. I mean, I I don't know why that struck me so much. Like, that's one way of depicting it, I guess. Jesus fucking Christ.
16 and the first whistleblower, you can watch our video, 16 Children Killed by Restrictions to Trans Youth Healthcare. All 3 videos will be linked down below.
So my guess is, I haven't seen that video. I haven't seen much of their recent stuff, but to say that the government killed some people who killed themselves is insane. It gives no thought as to what these kids' heads are being filled with, what's making them feel like it's so urgent, because transitioning after puberty, if that's what you still want to do by the time you've gone through puberty, is not a fucking death sentence. And we probably do need to help people be more comfortable in their bodies, you know?
Below, as well as within the reference list for this video. Today's video comes to us as part of a 34-tweet thread by Joe Morm, director of the Good Law Project. Starting with the first whistleblower, Joe wrote that quote, "First, whistleblower 1. W1
I've seen this, by the way. I don't know. Maybe hearing this person's dulcet tones reading it out will give you insight, who knows?
Tells me that in the 7 years before the High Court decision, on 1st December 2020, there was 1 death of a young trans person on the waiting list, but in the 3 years afterward, 16 deaths. These figures are said to come from a presentation to Tavistock staff given by the named doctor for safeguarding children. I have seen emails to the post holder expressing concerns about those numbers. After much chasing, they promised to set up a working group. W1 also says they raised these concerns with Hilary Cass and a director of the Tavistock. I have seen an email to both which sets out these death numbers. That email also complains, vigorously, of the failure of both to engage with these numbers, or W1. We put these points to the Tavistock and Dr. Cass. The Tavistock chose not to engage." End quote. So pretty much what we knew before. 1 child sadly took their own life over 7 years of Tavistock operations. That number then spiked to 16 deaths over just 3 years following the Bell v. Tavistock ruling that interrupted care for young trans people. That said,
can we blame that entirely on that, though?
We also have some new information. We now have the original source for said numbers, namely the presentation to Tavistock staff given by the named doctor for safeguarding children, which is a dedicated role designed to ensure the safety of people under a service's care, in this case the children making use of the Tavistock and Portman Gender Identity Clinic. That's where our whistleblower got their information, from within Tavistock itself. We also find out who the whistleblower approached about said problem, namely both the Tavistock director and Dr. Hilary Cass. Joe then confirms that he's seen at least 1 email, and that it laid out the number of dead children before the whistleblower complained about the refusal to engage with said number. Joe then confirms that the Good Law Project followed up on this with both Dr. Cass and...
What should they have done about it, realistically, when suicides can have so many different causes? It is a tricky one. It's like, you know, people killing themselves is never good, especially when it's like kids, you know? Because, I don't know, I wonder what kind of people like these kids have been talking to. I wonder what kind of internet fucking, Jesus Christ, my brain is dying. I will get my words out one day. I wonder what their internet activity was like. I wonder what kind of people were like talking to them. I wonder what kind of ideas were being planted in their heads that they might be a little bit too young to fully understand. And that might be part of why they end up catastrophizing when they're like, well, I'll end up going through puberty and then my life will be fucked. I mean, hey, this person's okay, let's not use that. Let's not use them as an example, but transitioning after puberty isn't a death sentence, and most people don't give a shit if you're trans, so I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, there could be too many causes, and to say that it's the government and that this is a cover-up, it just seems preposterous.
Tavistock, and that Tavistock did not respond. As for Dr. Cass, her team did respond, as seen in the following. Quote, Dr. Cass's team directed us to paragraph 5.65 of her report, on which we see the following. Multiple
comorbidities and or complex backgrounds. Yeah, see, it's just more complicated than these people want it to be. And, like, listen, I'm sorry that the world doesn't fit your simplistic mind view, but hey, sometimes it's more than just 1 + 1 is 2, you know?
Tweet. Paragraph 5.65 does acknowledge that there were deaths by suicide of young trans people at Tavistock, but it also presents those deaths in such a way as blurs the impact of the restrictions imposed by the NHS.
Because there's other factors, yeah.
In December 2020, following Bell.
Like, what do you want them to do? Like, take full responsibility without really knowing what the fucking story on any of them was, you know? Like, this whistleblower, did they know personally all these people and know, like, what they were going through? Like, everything? They know who they were talking to on the internet? Because I bet that was a factor in a few of them, at least.
Let's take a quick look at said paragraph. It reads, quote, The review met with the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust to discuss deaths of patients, where known, who had been referred to or were currently or previously under the care of GIDS. The patients who died by suicide between 2018 and 2023 were described as presenting with multiple comorbidities and/or complex backgrounds. In addition, the Trust observed that risk of suicidality was heightened at transition points in patient care, for example, between child and adult services. The young people were more likely to be registered female at birth, identifying as male in adolescence. End quote. Again, this is the paragraph.
Yeah, there's more trans men than trans women nowadays.
Dr. Cass's own team directed the Good Law Project towards when asking about why discussion on the Tavistock 16 wasn't included. Which, to me, spells out that Dr. Cass was aware of said suicides and that they, the one death prior to the Bell v. Tavistock ruling and the 16 deaths since said ruling, are what's being referred to in the line that, quote, the patients who died by suicide between 2018 and 2023 were described as presenting with multiple comorbidities and/or complex backgrounds. End.
Yeah, so they don't know that it's because of that's why they killed themselves. This should be obvious to most people, but the simpler idea is that there was more since this ruling, therefore this ruling caused those deaths, which is, again, preposterous.
Quote. This actually gives us some information in that it tells us when the first death, the one prior to the ruling, took place, namely sometime in 2018. Whilst it's possible that this was just a tragic coincidence, it should be noted that this is when transmisia as an industry really took off.
Transmisia is transphobia, by the way. Again, this person uses terms that no one else uses. It just is what it is. I don't plan on watching a huge amount of fucking Essence of Thought anyway, so.
Particularly in the UK. It's around this time that the far right made the switch from bathroom bills, which, while successful to begin with...
So the far right, now we're getting into like full conspiracy territory, bathroom bills. You know, now they're changing their focus to this, and now that's why they're talking about it. Maybe they don't agree with like transing kids. Not everyone does. I don't. I'm not far right.
In places such as the US, never really took off in the UK and had even begun to fail across the pond, to instead target trans participation in professional sports, which evolved into...
Target, like... How can this person not see why it's an issue for some people? It's insane. Like, is everyone that has a problem with trans women in women's sports far right? Like, can you not see the fairly obvious point in that specific instance that trans women were born male? Males have an advantage in almost every sport, and yet, no, it's a conspiracy. Like, we're just targeting things to get at trans people, as if everyone that's far right, according to this person, is like cartoonishly evil and just sits there in their chair like, ooh, how can we make trans people's lives miserable today? Ooh, let's have some thoughts. Why don't we punch one in the face each? Or how about we talk about sports and how they're cheating if they win a women's event because they were born a male? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is insane.
Trans participation in school PE, and eventually trans youth in schools, acting as the springboard for the fear-mongering regarding trans youth, the very same
fear-mongering
that led to the Bell v. Tavistock case. So that's one suicide in...
What? How can... Jesus Christ, how can fear-mongering lead to a case where someone, like, detransitioned? Was that not their own decision? I guess they can't think for themselves? So what, they saw some far-right propaganda, saw some fear-mongering, and now they have to detransition, and that's what caused the whole thing? Like, really? Is that what you're trying to imply here?
In 2018, then for 2019 and most of 2020, because Bell v. Tavistock was ruled on in December of 2020, no further suicides. Following Bell v. Tavistock, so the final month of 2020, plus 2021, 2022, and 2023, 16 children took their own lives. That's more than 5 a year. So we went from...
Yeah, so it's a simple addition game. It's a simple... It was this number before and it's this number after.
1 in 7 years to just over 5 a year. That's a staggering increase, making mention of comorbidities a desperate bid, as if that...
A desperate bid? It could have been a factor. Like, why does it have to be revolving around trans and nothing else? You know, besides anything, like, people shouldn't be treating transition as if it's going to solve all their problems, because it's not. If you're, like, depressed because you have depression, you have, like, that imbalance in your brain, and you transition, you're not necessarily going to not be depressed. But I don't know. There seems to be this culty, like, mentality. It's bizarre.
To explain how we went from 1 across 7 years to 5 a year.
And by the way, that's a reason why I really don't like people like Lily Tino or Jeffrey Marsh. Because of that whole, like, toxic positivity, this whole, like, fairy tale transition kind of thing. You know, I just... We're like making it out to kids like transitioning is this amazing thing. Like, oh my God, you can like, now I'm so happy. Look at me living my best life, when they look like they're dying inside, most of them. But hey.
It doesn't. As for Joe's argument that Dr. Cass blurred the suicides in an attempt to bury the lead, I have to agree.
Of course you agree. Why wouldn't you agree? By the way, has this always been number one? How many? There's only 3... Oh, whatever.
Who read through the Cass review and analysed what it chose to focus on, I am fucking appalled.
What it chose to focus on. There's no reasoning with these kinds of people. Like, I probably never have to watch another of this person's videos again. Because, I mean, for one thing, they're fucking deranged. They spent 5 years cyberbullying a woman called Rachel Oates over God knows fucking what. No one knows anymore. They went after someone called Vangelina Scove, who made a video about the same topic she did, and she decided that Vangelina must have stolen her video, which was ridiculous. And she got this like bizarre email being, you know, trying to act like a fucking mobster about it. It was really pathetic. So this person is deranged as it is, but like, fuck, let me just go back. Let me, I want to get the F-bomb in there, because that sounded good.
As for Joe's argument that Dr. Cass blurred the suicides in an attempt to bury the lead, I have to agree. As someone who read through the Cass review and analysed what it chose to focus on, I am fucking appalled by just how long Dr. Hilary Cass spent catastrophizing the facts that gender affirmative...
Was she catastrophizing? I don't remember catastrophizing. It sounded like it identified some issues in their opinion. Like, we have to use like the worst language for everything. It's insane.
Care was becoming more accessible and promoting known pseudoscience regarding the assigned gender of who was referred. Pages and pages were wasted to imply that young girls were being pressured into claiming that they're trans without evidence, promoting the known pseudoscience.
Well, I mean, is more kids dying after a ruling like evidence that that ruling caused the deaths? Or are there other factors? Because they provided evidence of other factors, and you didn't seem very happy about that. So I guess it works when you want it to, but it doesn't work when the rest of us want it to, whatever, you know.
Signs of rapid onset gender dysphoria in all but name. And yet, for as much time as was wasted on said nonsense, Dr. Cass failed to discuss the sudden spike in trans youth suicides following the Bell v. Tavistock ruling. And I say...
Here's the thing, talking about spikes, how would this person explain the spike in, like, trans men? Considering it always used to be, like, trans women, and there was some trans men. Now it's, like, mostly trans men, and a few trans women. I wonder how she'd square that one. Sudden spike in trans youth suicides following the Bell v. Tavistock ruling. And I say failed because that is exactly what she did. It was Dr. Cass's sworn duty, at least officially, to safeguard children, yet she opted to bury the lead on trans youth suicides following the Bell v. Tavistock ban. This feels more like a political speech than a YouTube video. Like, this person comes off very manipulative.
Effectively omitting key evidence from her report whilst promoting known pseudoscience.
Like, seriously, can you imagine, like, being anywhere close to this person in terms of, like, actually in their life and, like, anywhere near them? Can you imagine that and then disagreeing with them on, like, anything? Like, Jesus Christ. I would, like, write my will right there and then, because I think it's probably it if I so much as contradict the slightest thing this person says.
Science. This allowed for her report to be invoked to enact another, this time even more extreme ban on those very same life-saving medications. From what evidence I have available to me, Dr. Hilary Cass is nothing less than a hack doctor who tried to help the UK government.
By the way, I'm sounding normal again, shit. This person's evidence that this ruling they're talking about caused 16 deaths is literally the fact that it happened and then the deaths happened. And what she's doing is choosing to ignore any evidence that says maybe it was other factors in some of them. We still don't know what kind of people they were talking to. We don't know what kind of thoughts they were having. We don't know what kind of thoughts they were being fucking practically groomed into having. Because a lot of these positions that a lot of these trans people have, bearing in mind so many of them are like far left, anarchist, communist, or socialist, bearing in mind a lot of them are like pro-sexual liberty, often polyamory, all kinds of stuff that isn't really necessarily anything to do with being trans. That stuff doesn't come up naturally. That's like social. So it makes me wonder how these kids were socialized and like what kind of people they're around. Because I tell you something, like, I don't have kids. I have a nephew. I would be like terrified of the idea of him being in contact with not just this person, but anyone like her, because of the shit that they fucking put into your brain that I watched going on for years and like pretended to be okay with.
Cover up the unnecessary deaths of 16 children for her own personal and ideological ends, assisting in the government-sanctioned genocide of trans youth, meaning that any trans youth suicides that follow her report are blood on her hands.
Yeah, if you ignore any other factors that could have caused any of those deaths.
Dr. Hilary Cass
By the way, this person doesn't know any of this Tavistock 16, okay? This person doesn't know any of them, so they don't really know either. And they can pretend otherwise and put together a bunch of dots and add one and one and think they're finding two. Like, this is nothing. This is just someone speaking as angrily as they can, like, to get you, like, pissed off about the fact that some kids killed themselves. And I agree, it's fucking sad. Of course it is. But the way you're, like, politicizing it is a bit gross, honestly. Like, you didn't know these people. You didn't have any idea how they lived their lives. You didn't know what was happening with them.
Had the chance to disclose this information to save children's lives, yet she chose not to. And because of her choices, children are going to be killed via inadequate healthcare.
To be killed? Can you even say someone was killed when they killed themselves? I guess in some circumstances you probably can. I would argue that this is not one of them, because there's so much stuff we don't know about those people that killed themselves. And even what they tell you, like in suicide notes and stuff, you can't always trust that. And you don't know what else they had, that they might have been thinking that transitioning would sort. Maybe because someone told them. Who knows? That's the thing. We don't fucking know. This person didn't know these people.
She may not have been the one to pick up the meat cleaver, but she marks their children to be butchered nonetheless.
That is stupid.
In any just system, Dr. Hilary Cass would be forced to stand trial for her crimes.
I don't want to live in any country that has a system that this person considers just. Okay, fuck that shit.
But since we don't live in a just system, it's on all of us to
Well, you don't live in this system anyway, because you live in fucking India or some shit, so I don't know.
make sure that we never let her forget where the blood on her hands came from for as long as she lives. May it be a short and miserable life.
Jesus Christ. Hang on, we gotta get that again. The way she, like, looks after she said that.
Came from for as long as she lives. May it be a short and miserable life. With that noted, we can find she lives.
No.
May it be a short and miserable life.
Oh, she's so angry. God, this is like wishing someone a short and miserable life based on this. Like, all you're doing really is outing yourself as a disgusting person, quite frankly. And you didn't need to, because most people were somewhat aware. I wonder how much shit she gets on fucking Patreon, because I'm probably never covering this fool again. Like, I don't need to. A lot of this shit, it's like a one and done. Like, you know what they're about. This person gets £328, 30 pence a month. God, that's mad. 64 paid members. I mean, that doesn't sound like a huge amount. I might like to become her assistant. Yeah, please. How do I become Ethel Thurston's assistant? I would love that for $4.50 a month. Usually the assistants are being paid by the person, but okay. Your efforts have helped me surge ahead in my production rates, ensuring I have the resources to carry out my tasks. Receive early access to at least 2 videos a month, more with availability. There we go. If I want to be an assistant, then that's what I gotta do, give her money. Trans history in sports. Transphobes rely on child logic to poison discussion. That's just projection, man. Like, seriously? That's just fucking projection. Like, fuck off with that shit. God, the way she, like, glares, like, she does that look, like, you know it's serious. Like, I bet if any members of her polycule or whatever she has going on there, if any of them get the look, they know that's like, shut up. Just stop. Wherever you were going with this, just stop. Oh my God.
With that noted, we can finally move on to the title of this video, namely the fact that a second NHS whistleblower has come forward to confirm what the first told us, as seen in quote. Then whistleblower 2. W2 confirmed that they agree with the numbers on the presentation prepared by named doctor for safeguarding, the numbers given above in respect of W1. W2 says that when staff working at the Tavistock planned an open letter, they were threatened with disciplinary proceedings and being reported to their regulatory bodies if that letter contained the death numbers. W2 believes there was a deliberate attempt to suppress them. End quote. So a lot less information than on the first whistleblower.
Again, even if they were deliberately suppressed, which I'm not sure that they were really, because Cass's position, if that's what it was, I can't remember, pretty much was that there's a lot of factors that could have been involved, which I agree with. And to me, if they did cover it up, again, it might have been to avoid copycats. It might have been to avoid other people seeing this as some kind of statement and that maybe they should kill themselves. They do it over Palestine. Why wouldn't they do it over this at this point?
Yet none of it any less important. Least of all the threat of disciplinary proceedings if they went public regarding just how many children had been killed by the Belle v. Tavistock ruling. Before, we had to take...
How many children have been killed by the ruling? I'm going to keep doing it. I need to stop repeating myself, but it's just every time she says it, I can't let someone get away with that shit. I can't let her just say shit like that,
Tavistock silence as a tacit admission that they're trying to hide things with the possibility that they just don't give a shit. But now that we have evidence that they threaten people for...
Which is the only possibility in this person's mind, by the way. Like, anything that's not completely works out in the trans people's favour and isn't evidence of our ongoing oppression is just incorrect and wrong, according to this person.
For expressing the desire to disclose said information, I completely agree with Whistleblower 2 in how this seems to be a deliberate attempt to suppress said information, i.e. a cover-up. It's also good to know that the Good Law Project now has a second whistleblower, as it makes attempts to discredit the first all the harder. The Good Law Project is taking Victoria Atkins to court over the emergency ban, which she seemingly introduced just before Parliament was dissolved so that it couldn't be properly scrutinised, so it's good that the Good Law Project have
more conspiracies,
multiple sources. I'm not a lawyer, but I know that whistleblowers can be protected.
Thank fuck for that, Jesus Christ.
Protected from retaliation if they reasonably believe that the wrongdoing they disclose is in the public interest. I think that working alongside the Good Law Project should offer them at least some protection from retaliation.
Like, what's the public interest? Like, I think the only way to really deal with something like this is to know what's going on in these young trans people's lives, because what with the internet and stuff, being exposed to all kinds of insane opinions and all kinds of potential social contagions is it's too much. For me, the only way to deal with it is to encourage parents to monitor their kids' internet use and stuff like that, and to be aware of who they're talking to and what kind of stuff they're putting into their kids' heads. And the same with teachers, you get these things about parents find out at fucking parent-teacher meetings that their kid's being referred to as a different name and is being gendered differently without their knowledge and stuff, stuff like that as well. There needs to be a heck of a lot more conversation around this kind of thing and involving parents, which these kind of people seem not to want to do. They don't want to involve the parents because they see the parents as an obstacle. It kind of seems like the more trans people, the better to these people, which I don't see the logic of. I think people who are actually trans should transition. People shouldn't be convincing each other to transition, and maybe when you're a kid, you're just too young. Maybe you won't understand you won't understand what's going on. You're more likely to catastrophize going through what you're calling the wrong puberty and do something silly,
Especially seeing as there are multiple whistleblowers saying the same thing. This isn't just
multiple as in two.
Just one rogue person risking their career to try and save lives. It's two. The last thing I want to do is read out the last few tweets, which really highlight the severity of the current
tweets. That's gonna evidence your insane fucking claims. Great.
Situation in acknowledging that, quote, Good Law Project has supported several inquests into the deaths of young trans people on NHS waiting list. I have spoken to the families of young trans people who have taken their lives whilst on the waiting list, and my inbox is full of emails from terrified parents. Our debased national discourse around trans people, the harassment of clinicians, its politicization by some ministers, journalists, cheerleaders in the NHS has, I think on the evidence, led to young people taking their own lives. This is a profound, emerging national scandal. Just before Parliament was dissolved on 30th of May, the Health Secretary, Victoria Atkins, locked the shutters with an immediate ban on trans young people obtaining in the UK puberty blockers prescribed by regulated prescribers in France, Germany, Switzerland, and throughout Europe. I am aware of a number of young people who, entirely predictably, tried to take their own lives in the immediate aftermath of Victoria Atkins' emergency regulations. They were
This Joe Morm person, I have similar criticisms of. It seems like they're making it very simple. They're not giving a whole lot of information on the actual people that killed themselves. And without knowing those people, and without knowing what was going on in their lives, it's like, how can you conclude this so confidently?
Will inevitably make things.
But hey, this is what happens when you get your information from fucking Twitter, so I don't know.
Worse. We are challenging those regulations. See here, end quote. With Joe then linking the Good Law Project crowdfunder to take Victoria Atkins to court, a link which will be included in both the description and the reference list. But I just wanted to focus down on that one line, that quote, "I am aware of a number of young people who entirely predictably tried to take their own lives in the immediate aftermath of Victoria Atkins emergency regulations," end quote. This is no longer theoretical. We have confirmation by
This is no longer theoretical, this is some guy's opinion.
a trusted source that the new puberty blocker ban is having the exact same impact as the previous.
A trusted source. Okay, great. Some guy on Twitter that works for a organization. Some of these organizations are pretty crazy themselves, by the way.
A fact those responsible for said bans were fully aware of. That is why I open this video by acknowledging that there can be no more doubt left. That the UK government is committing democide, the intentional killing of an unarmed or disarmed person, in this case civilians, specifically children, by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity and pursuant to government policy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bro. I still have a lot of doubts. I'm sorry. I still have many doubts on what you're saying. It's very sad that kids killed themselves, but all you're doing is literally, ironically, scaremongering. That's what you're doing. Like, you accuse other people of, like, scaremongering. This is, like, scaremongering on fucking steroids. Like, it's insane.
This is no accident. This is acting with the intent to kill, a fact shown to us not merely in what the whistleblowers have told us, but also in Dr. Hilary Cass's flippant response to the Good Law Project. Anyone
Was it flippant? I don't know. Of course it's flippant, like, when they're giving evidence of, like, their side, because, you know, they don't ultimately feel responsible. Like, come on, like, what am I supposed to say to this shit, man? This is ridiculous. This is the stupidest thing I've ever watched in my life. Like, yeah, what's the worst possible outcome? What's the worst possible conspiracy that could be going on based on the fact that there were restrictions on puberty blockers and some kids then killed themselves? What's the worst fucking way of it possibly existing? Here we go. Essence of thought.
who wasn't an absolute monster would have stopped and asked for more information rather than rush to defend it by blaming comorbidities.
They're not blaming it, they're just saying that there's other factors, like, you can't really hold them responsible to it. And where's the onus on other people to get more information? Like, you know, fuck's sake. I don't know. Like, I would love to live in this person's brain where they can come to the dumbest of conclusions so confidently and spout it off on the internet and presumably earn a decent amount of money off of it. I don't know. I mean, what? 1465, 19 hours ago. This is a few quid, I guess.
Dr. Cass's actions in doing just that can only leave trans people, such as myself, to conclude that the original Tavistock 16 were no accident, that their deaths were the intended result of the Belle v. Tavistock case.
The intended result, they wanted children to kill themselves. Literally, the Tory government, according to this person, are a bunch of people that sit in their chairs with fucking cats on their laps, fucking stroking them, maybe stroking their little beard or their mustache, while they sit there like, oh, how can we kill more trans people today? I know, we can wipe some kids out if we fuck with puberty blockers. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. You know, Jesus Christ. How old is this person? I think they're like 30 or something. They're younger than me, but not much. If I heard someone like saying these words and I couldn't really age the voice, I would assume they were about 12, honestly. Like, that's the logic we're working on here, and unfortunately, there's just so many trans people like this on the internet.
A result the current government seeks to double down on, however it can. As Joe put it, this is a profound national scandal, and it's beholden on us to make sure that it doesn't get buried, because the UK press are currently refusing to report on the topic, seemingly because of their own complicity in creating the environment that...
What if the UK press reported on it, and then a bunch more kids what if the UK press reported on it and then a bunch more kids killed themselves? Maybe there's like a bit of an incentive to keep it quiet because of things like the kids in Newport that killed themselves one after another. You know, the fact that shit like that happens, the fact that it, you know, suicide has its own like social contagion, as it were. But that's never going to enter this person's mind because that doesn't support the trans people are victims narrative. And yes, this person has a fucking narrative. They can talk about other people's narratives as much as they want. Okay, they can do that. I don't know, where am I going with this? I don't fucking know, let's just keep watching.
Enabled the government to do this. I want to see people carrying 16 child-sized coffins to every government protest.
Jesus Christ, that's gross. Why? Like, if I was a family member of one of those kids, it's like, just let them be at this point. Like, fuck me. See, again, this is exactly what I'm against. This fucking radical, insane shit. It's not helping anyone. It's bringing 16 coffins to a fucking protest. Is that going to help anyone? Is that gonna really make much of a message that they can't pretty easily step on by saying, well, what did you know about these people? Like, what were their circumstances? Did any of them have depression? Did any of them have anything else, you know?
16 coffins to represent the Tavistock 16, along with any other children the government has already killed with their latest
By the way, this person doesn't even live in the UK, so I guess they're not doing it. They want other people to do their fucking dirty work for them, so nice.
Because that's the truly tragic thing. We won't know the cost of said violence for years, if ever.
Violence. It's violence now. Anyone who looks like this shouldn't be allowed to use the word violence. And if they do, it's meaningless. What do you mean by that? It's the same with like fascist. It's the same with transphobia, transmisia. What does it mean when you say that? It's like harm. How many times do people say the word harm in the most generic way possible? Like, you can't do that because that causes harm. What harm? What's the harm? You have to specify or I'm not listening, okay? That is a nonsense sentence until you actually lay out what you're talking about when you say harm. It's the same with fucking violence.
It's only thanks to the bravery of the two whistleblowers, the Tavistock heroes, that we found out about the Tavistock 16. In some alternate reality where they lacked the courage to come forth, it's likely that we wouldn't know any of this, that we'd still be talking about theoretical harm, and that is absolutely terrible.
Which is what they fucking do constantly. I don't know. I think this whole thing is insane.
Fine. That is why we can't rely on there being future whistleblowers. Not only is that leaving things up to chance, it'll be too late for the children who are already thinking of or have already attempted to take their own lives.
Well, who's there for them? Who's there telling them that going through puberty is not a fucking death sentence? Who's there telling them that, you know, that killing themselves is not the way forward? Like, who is there? Like, it seems like these kind of suicidal, like, groups on, like, Twitter you see and stuff like that. Like, these trans people that fucking endlessly doom spiral together. There's probably something, like, socially that is really not helping these people as well. But you're never going to talk about that. And short of, like, some kind of infiltration shit, which I'm not fucking prepared to do, like, there's as much covering up from these people as there are from the other people, because I guarantee you there's a lot of shit around any of these people which are not helping. And it might be to do with, like, parents that are not very accepting, and I get that. It might also be to do with the kind of shit that people like this are filling their heads with, making them feel like it's all hopeless and that the world is this utterly transphobic, horrible place, coming from people who probably don't leave their houses very often. And this person doesn't live in a Western country, so whatever experience they have in fucking India, it's not the same as me leaving my house in the UK, where I very rarely get any shit, by the way. And yeah, trans healthcare isn't good enough right now, but calling it, like, violence and stuff, like, it's insane. It's completely crazy.
Of course, turning up and challenging the people responsible is only half the picture. Just as there's a need to display both our collective and sorrow and anger at demonstrations, it's also important, now more than ever, to create a space within the trans community that is positive and supportive, especially—
Yeah, but the trans community is not that. Like, how many ways do we need to tell these fucking people? The trans community is like, the way it seems to work is like purity testing. And like, if you have one thing about you that's like right-leaning or anti-trans or something like that, you can't be around them anymore. Like, even if you're a fucking liberal, bearing in mind that in these communities, almost everyone is a socialist or an anarchist or a communist, that's enough to like get you excised from most spaces, like questioning anything. Like, these people are insane. How are we gonna build fucking positive spaces within the trans community when so many trans communities are insanely negative? Like, what's some ideas? Maybe she'll give some before this stupid video ends, you know, who knows, but I don't know. It doesn't sound like you're doing a huge amount to fucking help these people either. Like, are you personally telling these people not to kill themselves? I'd hope so. But, you know, the community needs to change. It's not about building something within the community. Like, the way that a lot of trans people operate on the internet needs to fucking change. And until it does, I'm not going to stop making these videos, pulling idiots like yours pants down. You know what I'm saying? And people like go off on me in comments when something gets fucking algorithmed, like, you know, oh, you're going against the trans community. You're like shitting on the trans. I'm not shitting on the trans community. I'm pointing out seriously flawed and toxic shit that trans people are doing on the internet that other trans people often will hold them up for and say, hey, this is good. You know, this is pro-trans. This is good. It's not fucking good. And a lot of people have found themselves in my position where they can't really get into any trans communities because they're full of fucking crazy people. And these are the people you want to be looking after, these like kids, making sure they're okay, when their idea of the world is skewed because of you people. Their idea of transition is skewed because of you people, because of like social media, because of like fucking TikTok and stuff like that, watching Dylan Mulvaney as if that's what their life's gonna be, you know? It makes me despair, honestly. These people don't have any solutions. When they do, it's like this general bullshit. Let's see if they say anything else, though.
especially for trans youth. I know that can be hard to do when dealing with news like this.
Hard to do? You haven't given any examples of how to do it. And you won't acknowledge that maybe at least some part of like trans suicides might be how shit fucking trans communities are. I'll tell you something. It's no better locally from what I can tell. We used to have a trans space in my city. It was full of the same people. It was a complete non-starter for anyone like me who just isn't really like those people, you know? And the worst thing is... Nah, it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Okay.
Yes, but it's on us as adults to project that stability, even if it feels like shit is being pulled down.
You're asking trans adults to project that kind of stability. I'm sorry. This is like the most optimistic shit I've ever heard in my life. This is insanity. You don't seriously believe the words that you're saying. I refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe it any more than you look in the mirror in the morning and tell yourself you're a woman. I don't believe that either. I'm sorry. You can make more of an effort and maybe you'll look like one, but I don't see it. And you know, you can identify as what you want, but if people see a man, they're going to call you a man. I'm trying to be as respectful as I can to these people, knowing that I'm getting zero respect from any of them because I'm criticizing them. But whatever, if I start calling people a he in future, that's just what I'll do. Am I goth? Waterrack231. I don't think I'm a goth personally, but if people want to call me a goth, they can. This isn't me, by the way. The person that's big on the screen, that's not me, that's someone else.
Around us. To that effect, if you know a trans youth, whether it be among your family, friends, or wider community, do keep an eye on them and reach out.
Yeah, keep an eye on who they're fucking talking to on the internet. That's what you should do.
Talk to them. Be a shoulder for them to cry on if they need it, or someone to distract them.
Zek Daddy, hi, how are you doing?
From their hate. And if they let you know that all seems hopeless, be sure to let them know that this isn't the first time the trans community, let alone the LGBT+ community, has had to fight such injustice.
No,
that
don't.
for as dark as the night might...
That was almost an okay section for once, but I mean, someone's suicidal, like, Be nice to them. Yeah, of course, yeah. This isn't the first time the trans community has had to fight against the oppressors. Like, no, going through puberty isn't a fucking death sentence. And even if you're trans, you should look at what other issues have. NoobJube12. I'll break those glasses, Ian. I don't know who Ian is, but fair enough. Do I play guitar? I do play guitar, yeah. Hey, thank you for listening. I've been playing since I was 9, and I'm a lot older than 9 now. I gotta keep moving though, because I've got I have to go in like an hour, if not less. What's she saying?
Fight scene. Dawn will come, and the sun will rise again.
Yeah, it's Essence of Thought. That was a stupid fucking video. Trans people do not need more conspiracy theorist assholes thinking that Twitter is like a source of facts. I don't know. Fuck Essence of Thought. She seems like a prick.